Hi, this is Scott Erickson with DTG, and welcome to our comprehensive installation and setup video of the new Epson SureColor P-Series wide format printers. Now, if you're not familiar with us, DTG is a computer graphics reseller based in Tampa, Florida. We provide digital photography, color management, printing, supply, finishing solutions to the photo, fine art, proofing, signage, and graphics markets. Like I said, this is the video to the new long-awaited replacement to the Epson 7890, 9890, 7900, and 9900 printers. So the new SureColor P-Series come as P6000, it's 24-inch, P7000, 24-inch with 10+1, the P8000, 44-inch, P9000, which is a 10+1 ink set. All right, so what we're going to do in this video is we're going to unbox the new printers and walk you through installing and setting up this printer, from the hardware installation all the way through to installing the software. So before we get into unboxing the new printers, let's talk about the features of the SureColor P-Series. Basically, if you're familiar with the older generation, the 890 and the 900 printers, the chassis looks almost identical outside of a few cosmetic changes. But internally is where they've made a lot of the changes. So, for example, the new P-Series feature a new precision core print head that's been tuned for the new ink set, as well as features a new anti-repellent ink coating technology on the surface head to minimize nozzle clogs. It also features, as I stated, a new completely revamped ink set. So this has been reformulated, which yields basically a 1.5 greater Dmax, or black density. And this really does make a big difference in contrast in that nice punch deep blacks. The ink set also features a slightly wider color gamut, and also is a lot more archival in terms of longevity. Some medias like Epson Luster is also or already in testing and is testing out beyond 200 years, so almost twice as long as the previous generation ink set. Also available on the new printers is a faster internal motherboard. Also an optional 320 gigabyte hard drive that you can add to the printer to store jobs and reprint old jobs. It features a new SpectraProofer option, which is the ILS 30, which allows you to spec to the M0, M1, and M2 standard. It also features a new screening in the Epson driver for improved tonality and improved quality. The printer also has a new control panel, so it's a little bit more logical, a little bit faster to get through. Also as an option, as a completely different SKU, is the commercial edition in the 10 color series, the P7000 and P9000. You can get a violet edition, which basically expands the gamut in the violets and the purples to achieve a greater match to the Pantone color matching systems. Now with the new violet option, you can hit 99% of the Pantone color matching system. This isn't really recommended for photo and fine art. We will be doing a full review on comparing those gamuts, but the violet option again is more geared towards the graphic arts because it gets rid of it replaces the light black, which is really important in photo and fine art. In terms of if you're new to the Epson series printers, if you're not familiar with the 900 and the 890 series, the Epson wide format, these particular printers are pretty much the gold standard for photography and fine art and printing. They feature the highest quality, the best screening, very fast print speeds, the great archivability, a straight through paper baths so you can do rigid boards. So Epson in the wide format, basically about as good as you get. We sell Canon, we sell HP, we sell all the major brands, but the Epson is a great product for photography and fine art. All right, so it's important to note what we're standing in front of is the new P9000, which is the 44-inch. The 8000 would be identical in terms of the out-of-box experience, except for the two less inks. The P6000 and P7000 are very similar to what you're looking at here. The stand is just slightly different, but very similar. We'll probably shoot a setup video for the P6 and 7 stand a little bit later. First what we're going to do is just go ahead and score the box to open up the top and the bottom. But we're also going to go ahead and take off the UPC code, which is located on the side of the box. The UPC code can come in handy if Epson's ever offering any kind of rebates or anything like that. On the other side of the box, there is a label that says open here first for installation, so we'll just score that. And then that's where we can locate the power plug as well as the setup guide if we want to read through and walk through setting up the printer. So after I grab that stuff, I'll go ahead and open up the box. And inside the box is another smaller box, which is basically the stand contents box. So I'll go ahead and grab that and then lift up. And then we'll go ahead and take this out and we'll show you the contents of the stand box, which we'll put together first. So this is that internal stand box that we just pulled out. This is the contents. We've got a cross brace down here, a leg. We've got basket contents, and then some hardware to assemble that basket. Okay, so what you're looking at here are the contents of that stand box. You've got your left and your right legs. All right, you got your cross brace, and then this is the hardware that assembles the legs to the cross brace. We got 3 bolts on the left and right with the Allen wrench that's included, and then 2 wing nuts. Once we're ready to put the printer on the stand, we secure it with those wing nuts. This up here, including these rods and all of this content, is for the basket, which we'll put on after we put the printer on the stand itself. So we're going to go ahead and just put these together, and then we'll show you how to get that done. All right, so this is Dusty. He's going to help me out and put the stand together. What we're going to do is go ahead and grab the legs. Now the legs are marked R and L, all right, so left and right. And then if you take a look, this is the opposite side. You got 3 holes where the 3 bolts go. So we're just going to turn, insert this L cross brace into each leg, and then take our hardware, and then just go ahead and screw those 3 bolts in on each side, and then tighten them down with the Allen wrench. All right, so we got the legs attached to the cross brace. We're going to go ahead and just discard the basket contents because it's going to be a lot easier for us to put the printer on before we put the basket on, which we're going to do later. The printer is actually in the box the opposite way we have the stand, so Dusty and I are going to go ahead and flip this around. And then we'll go ahead and take the outer shell box off, just lift it up and over. And then as you can see, we've got some internal cardboard and packing components. We'll just discard all of that and then take out the roll spindle adapters, some ejection accessories, ink cartridges, etc. Okay, so at this point you can see we got all the packing material lifted off. We've actually kind of broken down as much of the styrofoam as we can to make it a little bit easier to get out of the box. We do recommend that you get 4 people to do this step. We're going to do it with 2, but we've done this several times, but we do highly recommend that you get 2 people on either end of the printer. Lift it up. If you look at the stand, it's got these black, what I would say, posts. All right, so those posts go in holes on the bottom of the printer. What we're going to do is we're just going to center this stand kind of on the back of the printer, and then we'll go ahead and lift it up and then place it down. We'll get a little bit of a feel for it. If you do have that 5th person, he can help you spot it and make sure that those posts go in those holes correctly. All right, so Dusty will go ahead and lift this up and get it on the stand. 1, 2. All right, so we spun the printer around. We're going to go ahead and attach the printer to the stand, and it's just simply these 2 wing nuts. So located on the bottom of the printer is a screw hole, one on the left and one on the right. I've already got the one started on the right, so I'll take this one on the left, go ahead and screw it in. Okay, so we're now ready to install the basket, which is the most difficult thing to install on this printer. So if you get past this, you should be good to go from here on out. The easiest thing to do is go ahead and lay out the actual basket as you see it here. So we're in front of the printer. Make sure that these black tabs are up, not down towards the carpet, and then the black strings are towards the back. With the basket contents, you got this silver bar, which goes in the front of the basket, and you had 3 rectangular posts and 2 circular posts. So the order that these go in are basically rectangle, circle in the middle, rectangle, rectangle. So on the basket are pockets that we actually just insert these posts into. So we'll insert it into each pocket along the basket, and then we'll be ready to move on to the next step. All right, so we went ahead and just kind of folded up the basket for now. We don't need it right now because we're going to go ahead and install the posts on the front and the back of the legs. We've got 2 over here. Dusty's got 2 over there. 1 goes in the front, 1 goes on the back leg, which we'll show you in a second. So if you look at these posts, we've got a hole at the bottom and a white line. This helps you line it up properly when you're putting the pin in, which you'll see in a second. So I'm going to take this with the hole at the bottom, put it in the center little rectangular opening, and on each side of the legs there's a hole that we can take this pin and basically insert into the printer and through that rod, which will hold the rod up. All right, then we're going to take these guys, these little elbows, we're going to take the long end, put it down on that shaft there with the hollow end. This is solid on the right, the hollow end pointing in. That's going to allow us to put the cross brace of one of the cross braces of the basket inside this. Okay, before we put the back posts in, we're going to go ahead and just attach the basket to the front end of the stand. So we'll just go ahead and take the back of the basket and kind of push it towards the back of the printer stand, and then we'll take the front of the basket, which has got this silver bar that you inserted a little bit ago. It's got 2 posts, one on the right, one on the left. We'll go ahead and insert those. Then we're going to take the next rod, which is a rectangular rod, and we're going to insert that into these little elbows that we installed a second ago. The next post is actually a round post, right? And this goes into a little groove down where you put those posts, those silver posts, and it just rests down in there. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and flip the printer around and then install the back posts in the back part of the basket. So we'll go ahead and put the back posts in the back part of the basket in. Again, holes on the bottom of these posts, white line. Go ahead and put those in the middle slot. Put the pin in. Just kind of wiggle it around a little bit until you got it in. All right, then the next post on the basket will actually be a round post. So that round post again goes in the groove down here, actually all the way at the bottom. We're going to take these, all right, and again these got a little hole in it. We're going to put that on top of the post into the groove. Notice that they're going in towards the printer, not out like this. All right, and then those both have little post holes that we can put this basket in. All right, and then basically this can swing in or out. Most people have this up against the wall, so it just kind of stays like this. While we're back here, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and point out the connections for the printer. We've got the main power right here. We've got Ethernet, which we recommend. We also have USB. You can connect it directly to the computer via USB. And this is that brand new slot that will hold our optional 320 gigabyte print servers that allows us to store and archive jobs right on the printer. All right, so that's pretty much the main connection. You do have another port either for a SpectraProofer or a take-up reel or both. So that's the connections. Once you do get it connected, you'll never have to really get to the back again. You can just push it up against the wall. All right, so what we're going to do now is remove all the packing tape. There's a lot of different packing tape on here, so we're going to go ahead and get all that off. Before we do, I'm going to show you specifically how to get the headlock tape out. If you look at this white tab up here, it's kind of 1, 2, 3 stepping you through it. I'm going to remove this last piece of tape so that I can swing the window open, and then we'll just follow this string down here, and then remove the tape that's inside, and then just pull to the left, and that's the head locking assembly. We'll continue on, remove all the tape, and catch up with you later. All right, we've got all the packing tape removed, the headlock removed. I went ahead and powered it up, which is the gray round button here on the left side of the control panel. After about 30 seconds, it will initialize and ask me to select the language. So we're going to go ahead and go with Italian. No, just kidding, just English. Asks us to set the date and the time. So we'll go ahead and set our date and our local time. All right, our unit lengths, whether we want to work in metric or feet and inches. All right, so depending on your preference, you can select that. The last thing it says is basically it warns you that ink charging does take some time. And don't install the ink cartridges until it tells you. So I'll go ahead and click OK. It is asking me at this point because we do have options of whether we want to run this with the Violet mode, which is the commercial edition of the printer, or LLK, which is the Photo Fine Art edition. So it's important that you select the proper color at this point. Real important, because if you select Violet and you don't have the commercial edition and you have the light black, you just don't want to do that. So make sure you select the appropriate color that you're going to be installing. So we're going to go with LLK for this version because that's what we're installing. So I'm going to select that and then hit the OK button. All right, and it gives you a warning just to make sure that you selected the correct one, and we're going to say yes, continue. All right, once ink charging is done, you can't change the ink set, so it's warning you yet again. So do you want to continue? Yes. All right, so at this point it's saying please wait, and it's going to go ahead and pop those covers and ask us to go ahead and install those ink cartridges. Now when we're installing the ink cartridges, what we want to do is we want to shake those cartridges before we actually insert them in the printer. So we'll do like a little mild shake on the cartridges, and then if you leave them in the box, you can actually do them all at one time, so you don't have to sit there and individually shake all your ink cartridges. All right, so we'll shake them for about 10 seconds or so. All right, and that just basically helps get the pigments and the inks sitting properly in the cartridge. All right, we're ready to install the cartridge. In the blue bag, we've got a little tear notch built into it. So we'll just pull and tear that down. Makes it nice and easy. You don't need scissors. All right, so we'll just unbox these. And then the printer is still kind of initializing. You see the print head going back left and right. Ultimately, it's going to go ahead and pop these covers, which allows us to access the ink bays so we can install the ink cartridges. Now on the ink cartridges, we've got a chip and we've got a little arrow. All right, that was the doors popping. That allows us to install the cartridges. They're also labeled, so LLK or LGY, whatever you want to call it, light gray or light black. These chips, just a special note, over the years we've been selling, installing, and supporting Epson printers for quite a long time, and sometimes these chips can actually get a little bit dirty and not make good contact with the printer. So if you ever have a problem with the printer not recognizing an ink cartridge, most of the time it's because that chip may have gotten a little dirty. So you can actually take a pencil eraser and kind of erase it, wipe off any of the debris that's on it, and then reinsert the cartridge, and most of the time that actually alleviates the problem. All right, so we'll swing that down. All right, we'll swing this down. The bays and the slots are labeled accordingly. So we've got light black here. This is the light black or violet slot. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and insert that with the arrow on top pointing in, push, and it'll click into place. All right, this is the orange. So we'll go ahead on the left side, arrow up, pointing in, put it in the orange slot, push, and it'll click. We'll go ahead and continue on with the rest of the inks. All right, so we've got all the ink cartridges in except for the last one. One quick comment. On the front panel, LCD, it'll show you as you start to click these cartridges in. If the printer is seeing it, the red X will go away. We've got all these in. I'm going to go ahead and close this left bay. I'm going to push the last one in. It'll click into place and then close the door. The printer will check to see if they're genuine Epson ink cartridges, and then once it does that, it will start charging the ink system. Now this is the P9000. If you did have the P8000, basically you would have had two less colors, not orange and not green. So there would have been two covers on the bay for those two colors in the P8000 series, and also the P6000. All right, so it's begun charging the ink, and it's giving you a status indicator. It's at 1% now. This will take, depending on your printer model, anywhere between 15 and 25 minutes. One real important note, you don't want to lose power during this process. So if you're in an area where you have intermittent power issues, lightning, things like that, you may want to hook this up to a UPS battery backup, because if it interrupts in the middle of ink charging, it will start all over again. And by doing that, it's going to actually waste some of the ink. Now it does use about a third of the ink that come in these starter ink cartridges to prime the system. So you'll actually lose a little bit of ink on this initial charge, and that's just part of the process. All right, so while the ink is charging, we'll go ahead and install our paper eject guides. This was in the main printer box. We've got 5 of them. So we'll look at these little clips, and they spring in. And then we've got little clips down here that these posts go in. So we'll just go ahead and continue on and install these guys. Total of 5 of them. And then these actually click out and will actually rest, so it kind of helps guide the paper out. You can put this actually, we can swing these back in, and we can swing that in and swing these over the basket if we like. But we'll go ahead and install those and then move on. So the ink is finished charging. We can see now our ink levels, and as I had mentioned, it did go through a little bit of the ink, so the ink is down for each of the colors. It says at this point paper out, so we're going to go ahead and load roll paper into our printer so that we can run a nozzle check and then do the head alignment, which will ensure that our printer is printing accurately. So with the Epson printer, it features a spindleless paper load, so there's no stick or spindle that we've got to insert into the core of the paper. It's really nice. It's got these roll adapters. So these roll adapters, as with the previous generation, they have 2-inch and 3-inch adapters built right in, because some paper will come with a 2-inch core and then some will actually come with a wider. So depending on if you have a 2-inch or a 3-inch, we can just slide this little button, and that button will expand or contract these flanges to fit the different size cores. The next thing I'll do is I'll take this handle and I'll swing it out towards me, and by swinging it out towards me, it allows me to insert this into the core. If I have this swung in like this, it won't go in. All right, so I have to swing that out, and then I'll close it. Now it grips and won't come out. So I'll do the same thing over here on this side, and these are interchangeable. There's not a left and a right. You can put it on either side. All right, so then we'll go ahead and we'll lift this up. Up here, we've got our paper load mechanism. So I'm going to unlock this, which allows me to swing this to the left or to the right. All right, so I'm going to adjust this to the width of the roll that I have in the printer. Now, when I put this paper up here, there's a little groove that this will sit in, and I want the paper winding up and over down into the printer. I don't want it scooping back that way. I want it coming out towards you so that it can go down into the printer. So I'll take this right edge, I'll push it all the way till it stops on this black. Then I'll swing this, and I'll line up. There's an arrow, all right, on this little adapter here, and I'm going to line the arrow that's on this with this left roll adapter. Once I've got them lined up, I can just roll that in, and then push it to the right, and then lock this into place. All right, so once I've got it loaded into the printer, the roll in, I'm going to take this. This is the cheap double weight matte roll that came with the printer. We'll just take that protective cover off. On the front panel of the printer, as I mentioned, it says paper out. The left arrow button on the control panel is the paper source selection. So when I push that, it asks me, do I want to select roll paper with cutter on, roll paper cutter off, or cut sheet? Well, we're going to do roll paper and cut the paper. So we're going to select roll paper cut. Then I'm going to hit the button in the upper right-hand corner. And what that is basically the paper load. So it's lifting up the platen, or the rollers, so that I can feed the roll into the printer. All right, so I'm going to take the paper. On this starter roll, your tip is pull it out enough towards you. All right, and then I usually take one end and I'll kind of put it in like an angle, all right, and then get it straight, because this really curly starter paper can get caught on the lip in there. So by taking it in and kind of put it in at an angle, I can get past that lip a lot easier. So I'm going to keep feeding the paper down, all right, until I can see it down here. Now, I went too far, so I'm going to wind it back a little bit. And a little tip is, if you grab this in the center and then take this right spindle and kind of put back tension, so I'm kind of pulling it down on the center and I'm pulling it back with this hand. By doing that, I'm inherently making it a lot straighter inside the printer. All right, so once I get that straight, I'm just going to push this upper right button again. That's the rollers coming down to grip the paper. All right, so basically that's going to grab it. Now that the printer, all right, sees the paper, it's going to come out, measure, find the left and the right edge, and then continue on with loading the paper. All right, so the printer just finished loading the paper, measured it, and everything's fine. What immediately comes up on the screen is it's asking us what type of paper is loaded in the printer. Well, by default, it says premium glossy photo paper. Well, we just loaded double weight matte, different than premium glossy. So this has absolutely nothing to do with color or profiling or anything like that, but it does have to do with how the paper's fed through the printer. So it's important you select this step. So what we'll do is we'll say, no, this is not premium glossy, and then we'll navigate to the matte paper family, and then we'll go ahead and select matte paper or double weight matte paper as our paper type. So when I select that, the machine now knows I have matte paper in there. If, for example, we had loaded canvas and the setting was on plain paper, well, that thickness is a pretty big difference in paper thickness, so you could run into head strikes or something like that. So it's real important that you go ahead and set the correct paper type in terms of thickness. All right, so at this point, we're ready to print. We could print from our WIP software if we had already loaded that, but since this is a new install, what we're going to do is we're going to run a nozzle check to make sure that all our jets are firing in all of our colors. So to do that, I'm going to hit the menu button, then I'm going to select maintenance, hit the right arrow button, and then nozzle check, all right, and then I'm going to hit OK to print the nozzle check pattern. If any of you guys have used Epson printers before, you're very familiar with this pattern. If you're not, basically what it's going to do is print out a little stair-step pattern for each of the colors. Those stair steps are individual nozzles, and what we're looking for are clogs or missing lines in those stair step patterns. So we'll show you that here in a second. All right, so the printer printed out, automatically cut it. And if you're looking at this pattern, it's got all of the colors on it. And not sure how much you can see, but there are little stair steps. And what we're looking for, again, is gaps or missing stair steps. If there are, that means nozzles are clogged. And what we would do is just run a print head cleaning. So to run that print head cleaning, all right, after you run a nozzle check, it automatically takes you to the head cleaning menu. You could either hit exit if everything is fine, as it is in this case, or I could go into the head cleaning menu, all right, and real nice feature with Epson printers is I can either clean all of the nozzles, or I can isolate it down to color pairs, so I don't have to waste all that ink, because when you run a cleaning, it's spitting ink out of the print head into the maintenance tank. So if I had a problem with cyan, for example, I could go down, instead of all nozzles, just select the cyan magenta pair, all right, and then basically hit the right arrow button, hit proceed, and then execute that cleaning. All right, I don't need to. All right, so I'm just going to back out and say exit, and then we're ready to go. What we're going to show you next is the print head alignment, which is optional, but we highly, highly recommend it, because if you want the best quality prints, you should run through this print head alignment procedure. So now we'll run that print head alignment. We only have to do this once and only once, unless we actually physically move the printer. When I say move the printer, actually put it in a truck and drive it around town, not just roll it around. So do this once. It'll basically ensure that your printer is printing as good as it possibly can. So again, we'll go into the menu, hit the right arrow button, which is also the menu button, go into maintenance, and then I'm going to go down to head alignment. I'm going to go hit the right arrow into head alignment, then we're going to go auto, and then basically there are several patterns in here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run 3 of them, and I'm going to run the first 3 of them, and I'm going to run them in the order in which they appear in the menu. So the first one is Uni-D, UNI-D. Once I hit basically OK and then OK again, it's going to print that Uni-D pattern out. The print head has actually got a sensor in it. It will read it and then self-adjust based on that pattern. All right. After Uni-D fits, I'm going to come back into the head alignment menu and run the one right underneath it, which is by D to color. All right. Same procedure. I'm going to select it, hit OK. It's going to print it. It's going to read it and then adjust. Then finally, I'm going to come back in and then run by D all, or by D all color. All right. It's going to do the same procedure. I'm going to run those 3 patterns. All right. Once I do all 3 of those, I'm done with the head alignment. So I'll just go ahead and get that Uni-D started, hit OK, and it's going to start the procedure. We'll run through all 3 and then catch up with you. All right, so now we're going to go over some of the front panel menu settings, and we actually are going over this as we discovered after owning and using the printer for some time, we discovered some of the default settings that we prefer to change. All right, so to get into the front panel menu, we're going to hit this right arrow button here, which will also say menu on your front panel. Once we push that button, it will show you a list of menu options. We're going to scroll down to, the first thing we're going to change is in preferences. So scroll down to the preferences menu setting, go into it. If it asks you for a password, the default password, by the way, is blank. So you can just hit OK, there's no password. So once we're in the preferences menu, go down to power off. The default will be 8 hours. We're going to change that value to off. You can change it from 1 to 24 to off, and we're going to take it to off, meaning leave our printer on 24/7. All right, and there's some logic to this, as you'll see here coming up in the next options that we're going to set. So once we set it to off and we click OK, we're going to back out by pushing the left arrow button, and then that's going to take us to the main menu again. All right, going back into the main menu, we're going to go into the printer setup menu. Once we go into that, we're going to go into timer cleaning, and we're going to basically change that value. The default is off, meaning the timer cleaning, meaning the time that it's going to clean, the interval is off. It doesn't auto clean. What we have found with these new P-Series printers and the new heads and the new ink is we can get dramatically less nozzle clogging if we do a simple, mild auto timer cleaning. Initially, we set this to 24 hours, and it's been working flawlessly. I have not had to run a manual cleaning on our new P-Series printers by setting this timer cleaning to 24 hours. We're going to experiment and take that up and increase those hours. So we can take it up to 60 hours if we want to, but we'll play around with that a little bit, and if we learn any more information, we'll let you know. But what we have found is by the printer doing an auto cleaning, and this is not wasting a lot of ink, this is a very mild amount of ink, it dramatically improves the reliability of the print head and reduces nozzle clogs a lot. Finally, so we're going to OK that. We're going to change it to 24 or whatever you find works for you in your environment. If you're in a drier environment, you may need to take that to 18 hours or 12 hours. I don't know. But here in Tampa, Florida, 24 hours is working perfectly, and we may even increase it. But once we set that, we'll OK it. We'll go back out. We'll go into the printer setup menu again, and this is totally up to you guys. Personally, I go into auto nozzle check, okay, and basically the default value under auto cleaning setting is periodically, meaning it periodically will auto check the nozzles. Personally, I turn that off. All right, and the reason is because I find that the auto nozzle check isn't always reliable, meaning sometimes it finds problems that aren't really there and will clean anyway. So I actually take that to off, and by taking timer cleaning in our previous setting and putting that to 24 hours, it really has dramatically improved the reliability. So turn off auto nozzle check, in my opinion, and turn on timer cleaning for an interval based on your environmental conditions. All right, so head alignment's done. Now I just want to go over some of the features with the printer and some of the operation day-to-day things you're going to be doing with it. Obviously, with consumables, we're going to be changing paper, whether it's roll or sheets. We saw the ink cartridges. We installed those a second ago. The third consumable you're going to have is what's called the maintenance tank or maintenance tanks. This machine, the 44-inch machines, have two maintenance tanks. They have one on the right and one on the left. The one on the right is the one that gets used the most. It's used when you run print head cleanings, when it primes the printer. The one on the left only gets used if you do border-free printing. All right, so if you do borderless where the ink is bleeding off the edge of the paper, that's when the tank on the left gets used. So what I'm going to do is to remove that tank. I can basically do it anytime the printer is turned on. All right, on the back right side, you'll see a little slot. You can grab it, and then that's the maintenance tank. This is the same maintenance tank that's used in the prior generation printer, so there's no difference there. And you can actually see that this one has been used, and that's mainly because of the ink prime that we did with the new cartridges. So if I wanted to replace it, I would just put a new one in there and then click it into place. Now I'll go ahead and remove the left one. The left one's located in the same general area, but just on the left side. So I'll pull that one forward. You'll notice there's no ink in that maintenance tank because we haven't done any border-free printing yet. Now, leads to the question, can these be swapped? Yes, they can. So as this one's filling up, if you didn't have an extra maintenance tank on the shelf and you never did border-free printing, then just swap them out, all right? Because when these do fill up, there's a little chip on them that tells it when it's filled. When it does fill up, the printer will stop, and it will not print if it detects that the maintenance tanks are completely filled up. So try to keep an eye on it. It's a $39 part roughly, so just keep one of those on the shelf, and that way you're backed up in case that does fill up. The inks. So as you're getting close to the inks depleting, the front panel will show you, and ultimately they will warn you when it starts to get really low, all right? So if we wanted to go ahead and replace the ink tanks, on the front panel, all right, there's a button. It's the lower left black button on the main control panel area. So I'm going to push that button, and then a menu comes up, and it says, do you want to open the right, the left, or both? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and select, I'm going to open up the left cover. All right, you'll actually hear pressure releasing. All right, so this is a pressurized ink system. That's why you have to push a button to open up the doors, because it wants to release that pressure before you pull the ink out. What you don't want to do is try to force this thing open without going through this front panel command. All right, because that, if you try to force this open, and you can do it, all right, you don't want to pop that out, all right, if the pressure has not been released. So to replace ink cartridges, we saw this a little bit earlier, we just swing that door down, pull out the empty ink cartridge, shake the new one, and then just go ahead and pop it in. All right, so ink cartridges, you can call DTG for your ink needs. These come in 150, 350, and 700 milliliter capacities. The bigger capacity you buy, the less cost per milliliter. All right, so why wouldn't you want to always buy the biggest one? Because basically you don't want to buy more ink than you need, all right? And when I say that, you don't want that ink sitting in this printer for longer than 6 months, because basically pigments can start to separate and you can start to see a shift in color. So if you do 1 or 2 prints a day, I'd probably recommend the 350 mil, those middle cartridges, 1 to 2 prints a week, the 150s. But if you're doing a few hours a day of printing, then I would recommend those 700s. The cool thing is you can actually mix and match also. So if you find your work doesn't typically use a lot of orange, for example, you could buy the 150s of the orange or 350s and then 700s of all the rest of them. All right, so keep that in mind when you're thinking about ink. Cool thing about DTG, we do stock this ink all around the country in multiple warehouses, so typically we're a day away from you guys ground shipping on your ink needs. All right, so that's changing ink. Again, going back to the front panel, you've got an up and down arrow which allows you to feed the paper up and down. All right, so this is nice if you did want to feed out a little bit more paper and give yourself a nice border for mounting or something like that. So if the print finish you want a little bit longer, you can feed it out. And then in the lower right hand corner you've got the cut button. All right, so when I hit the cut button, it's going to cut basically right where, if you were to look down inside the printer where the print head is, there's a little symbol of a pair of scissors with an arrow. All right, that's showing you where the cut will actually take place. All right, so feed it down where you want it to cut, push the cut button, confirm it with an OK, and it's going to go ahead and cut right in that area. Another real nice thing about the Epson printers is they have a rotary cutter. All right, so this thing is a rotary self-sharpening cutter, can cut canvas, fine art paper, photo paper, all kinds of different papers. You don't want to cut your poster board. All right, that canvas, photo, and fine art paper, it'll cut all day long. Typically, you probably won't replace this cutter in the life of the printer, although you can. All right, so you can put new cutters in it. The other feature I want to talk about is there's a black button on the printer. So the black button allows you to switch between photo black and matte black, all right, depending on the paper that you're printing on. So photo black is engineered for photo glossy papers, luster, glossy canvases, satin canvas, anything with a shiny surface, you want to use photo black. Matte black was developed for matte papers, fine art, matte surface papers, cotton, enhanced matte, things like that. You get a much richer, deeper black when you print with matte black in those modes. So depending on the paper you've got loaded, you want to tell the printer what black to use, and you do that with that black button. So when I push that black button, it's asking me, do I want to switch my photo black to matte black? Okay, and I just have to say yes and confirm. There is a little bit of a switching process, so it is draining a little bit of the ink. You're going anywhere between 40 cents and 70 cents, depending on the direction you're going, in ink waste. So when you're thinking about printing, you don't want to be jumping back and forth between photo paper and matte paper. Try to group your jobs together, because there is a little bit of a waste of ink, as well as about a minute of time when you switch between those two modes. All right, so that's the black button. All right. The paper source button, basically we saw that earlier. I pushed that. It asked me whether I want to load cut sheet. What I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to go ahead and push the upper right button, all right, and it's going to go ahead and unload that paper. So it rewinds that roll paper, okay? So at this point, I'm going to show you how to load sheet paper. All right, so let's show you how to load cut sheet paper in this. And this could be 8.5 by 11 copy paper. So if you wanted to do nozzle checks on cheap, thin copy paper, you can just load a sheet instead of your expensive 44-inch wide canvas. Or you can even load that thick, heavy-duty poster board that we sell. This is great for trial exhibits, signage, advertising, things like that. You don't have to mount it. It's thick and heavy, big boards that you can load straight through paper path. Really, really cool feature. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell the printer that I'm printing in sheet. So I push the paper source, and then I'm going to select cut sheet. All right, if you look at the cover up here on the top, there's a vertical line with a little sheet icon. All right, and then in the actual printer down below, there's another kind of indention or groove that can help me line up the right edge of my paper. So I'm just going to line that up, all right, and I'm going to push that over until that right edge lines up, all right, on that little groove that's indicating the line for the straight paper. All right, so you'll notice it stops because it's hitting those rollers down there. There's a sensor in the printer that automatically sees that I loaded cut sheet, and it's asking me to go ahead and push the down arrow button. So when I push the down arrow, those rollers go ahead and grab that sheet. Same procedure as roll. It's going to come out, it's going to find the left and right edge, it's going to measure the paper, all right, and then once it finishes doing that, we'll be ready to print on our cut sheet paper. We just set our driver in our Windows software or Mac software or RIP software and go ahead and select 8.5 by 11 or whatever our cut sheet is. Now, a tip on this is if you're doing that really heavy, thick poster board, what I usually do is I'll put some downward pressure because it's so thick. So I'll put my hand up here on the top of that board and push down while I push the down arrow, so it gets enough of grippage of the actual poster board. You could put odd sizes. So if I have scrap papers in here, if I've got 23 by 35s, I can load them as a sheet. So that's what's really nice about it. You don't have to just print on roll paper. You can print on whatever size sheet, down to on this printer I believe it's right around 8 by 10, nothing much smaller than that. So it's got to be at least a little bit bigger than 8 by 10. All right, so that's how you load a cut sheet.
Okay, so let's go ahead and install the drivers and software. Now, unlike previous Epson printers, Epson's no longer including CDs or DVDs in the box. They're basically requiring us to download the software. While this can be a pain, it's also more practical as it ensures that you're getting the latest versions of the drivers that are compatible with your operating systems. So what we're going to do is we'll just open up a web browser. We're on the Mac now. We'll show you the PC here in a second. We're going to go to Epson.com, and then we're going to go to Drivers and Support, and then choose Professional Imaging. Then we're going to type whichever product we're installing the drivers for. So in this case, it's the P9000. You'll notice there's two different versions. The commercial edition, again, is for the violet version of the printer. The standard edition is if you're using light black, which is for photo and fine art. This is more for proofing industry and those that want to hit Pantone colors. So we're going to go search on the P9000, all right, and standard edition, and then go to drivers and downloads, and then we'll download the drivers and utilities. Now notice it's automatically detected my operating system. If you were doing this on a different computer and installing it on a different, you could just go ahead and select your operating system here, but it automatically detected it. So we're going to go ahead and hit download. It's going to start downloading. Now we've already actually finished that download, so I'm going to go ahead and double click that, double click the installation app, ignore all those warnings, choose my printer, click continue, continue, agree to the agreement, and then I'm going to go ahead and select both of these, which can be helpful for help, but also allow you to configure the Ethernet port and Ethernet IP address on the printer if you're connected via network. That's the Epson Net configuration utility. So we're going to install that. We'll go ahead and click install, type in our password, and then it will continue through the complete installation process. Okay, so once the installer finishes, it automatically launches this printer setup wizard. So we're going to go ahead and click Start to Begin. At this point, it's going to ask us how we are intending to connect to the printer, either through direct USB, meaning a USB cable from your computer to the printer, or over a wired network connection. So in our case, we're on a wired network connection. If you choose to do USB, you shouldn't have the cable plugged in at this point, and basically as it's warning you here, don't connect the cable, it will prompt you a little bit later. So we're going to check wired network connection. The printer is already on my network, all right, so I'm going to go ahead and click next. All right, and then it's just giving us a warning before you can print, you need to add it to the print queue. So we're going to click add printer, all right, and since it's already on our network, it shows up in our list of available printers. Now you've got either Bonjour or TCP/IP. Really, it's your choice on a Macintosh. On Windows, you're really only choosing TCP/IP, but you can select either Bonjour or TCP/IP. All right, I'm going to click add, and it's going ahead and setting up the printer at this point. We'll just click continue. All right, and then if we wanted to, we can hit print test page, all right, and it will send up a quick test page to the printer. I know it's connected as we saw it in our list, so I'm not going to do the test page, and then we'll just click continue and then close. And that's all there is to setting up the Epson P series printer on the Macintosh platform. So just like on the Mac, on the Windows side, it's a very similar procedure in downloading the driver from Epson.com. Once we do that, we'll go ahead and launch the executable of the driver and combo utility package. Click OK. It's going to extract or unzip the file and then begin the installation process from there. Again, at this point, you don't want to have your printer plugged in, whether it's USB or Ethernet, until prompted. So we're going to accept the terms, pick our printer, pick what we're going to install, and then click through the process. So once we click through the process, just like again on the Mac, it's going to ask us to select USB or Ethernet. We'll select which one we did and then just follow the prompts from there.
All right, so that completes our setup and installation video of the new Epson P series. We just did the P9000. The 8000 is identical. The 6 and the 7000 are the 24-inch version. The only thing that's really different is the stand. So look for a separate video on setting up the stand for the P6 and P7000. We'd like to remind you that DTG is here to help you guys with all of your printer needs, your ink, your paper, your supplies. We've got great pricing, warehouses all over the country that we can pretty much reach you guys most of the country in one-day ground service. We do offer also custom ICC profiles for all of our customers, including our HDR profiles, which offer a wider gamut and much deeper DMAX. So if you have any questions at all, please visit us at www.dtgweb.com or give us a call at 800-681-0024. Thanks, and appreciate your time.